were going to construct the perfect environment to make somebody tired, anxious, inflamed, and older, what would it look like? The light in the room would be dim. The light at night would be bright. The air in the room would not circulate. And inside the room, there would only be screens for companions and no windows. Does that sound at all familiar? Because it should. It's something we've built, it's something we've lived in, and it's something we normalize. 93%. 93% is the number that made me rethink longevity. 93% is the percentage of time that we spend inside, 86% in buildings, 7% in vehicles as a people, only 7% outside. And what happens in that 93% of the time? Well, we ordinarily feel exhausted. We feel burned out. We feel fatigued. We are chronically inflamed, and actually our telomeres, which are the protective caps on the ends of chromosomes protecting our DNA, actually shorten, making us older prematurely. One of the culprits here is screens. Like too much sugar burns out your metabolism, too many pixels burn out your brain. Your brain simply is overwhelmed by how much digital information there is to process, and often for people that produces not just burnout, but an ennui, just an unwillingness to do more. Not just an unwillingness, but an inability to do more. And that causes what I call digital obesity. We are overfed on pixels and underfed on nature. What we don't know is that that digital obesity hits the same dopamine cortisol pathways that ultra-processed food hits, the same non-nutrition, the same artificiality. And that, well, we learned over the last 40 years that ultra-processed food causes obesity, metabolic syndrome, heart disease, premature aging. Screens are doing the same thing, except we call it productivity. Now, screens at night are even worse. People who experience the most bright light between 12:30 in the morning and 6 in the morning have a 50% increased rate of heart attack and 30% increased rate of stroke. I mean, this isn't lifestyle stuff. This is a biological emergency. I reviewed 2,200 studies, peer-reviewed studies, to try to figure out what the minimum effective dose of being outside in nature would be to improve our health and well-being and to improve our longevity. And we already spend, it turns out, 7 to 12 hours a week, closer to 7, outside, but most of that time is what I call incidental. We walk from the car to another car. We walk across a parking lot to a building. We pick up a delivery. These are incidental minutes. But it turns out that if you turn some of these incidental minutes into intentional minutes in green or blue spaces, then you can turn those minutes into medicine. They improve this activity in green or blue spaces that's intentional, can improve mood and memory and CRP, C-reactive protein, inflammation. It can improve mood and focus and clarity. It can lower blood pressure and pulse, actually lower risk for heart disease if it's intentional time in green or blue spaces. And what do you do when you're there? What do you do when a green or blue space when you're intentionally there? Well, one thing is to walk. Just walking, not marathoning, not tennis, not gyms. Walking, more than any of the activities I've just mentioned, is the best activity to reduce all-cause mortality. 19% if you combine activities, 17% from walking alone, better than any of those other activities. And that's remarkable. And it's not just because you're taking a number of steps. It's because of where those steps are. Where those steps are is outside. And why is that important? Because outside is biological information for your brain and your body. That biological information for your brain looks like this. The right dose and timing of daylight sets your circadian rhythm for the day. And with that, you get a big boost of cortisol in the morning to wake up. You get melatonin 14 hours later to go to sleep. You get what's called deep sleep in the first couple cycles of sleep only. And the deep sleep helps you clean your brain of beta amyloid and tau, which are the proteins that are responsible for, or rather accumulate in Alzheimer's disease. You also rebuild bone and repair muscle, but this is only if you get the right timing of light at the right dosage. You also get, when you're outside, fresh air. Why fresh air? Among other reasons, because air outside is cleaner generally than inside, and fresh air carries phytoncides, which are the chemicals that trees make to protect themselves from bugs. But they have an immune effect in people. They increase your natural killer cell count, and natural killer cells are white blood cells that take out tumor cells and virus cells in your body. And they do that by entering your bloodstream and in your brain act as antioxidants and anti-inflammatories. Fresh air. Being near blue spaces, walking near blue spaces, or being in or even next to blue spaces, that is, spaces that have water, whether still or running, can, in fact, have the same kind of effect in the brain. They change your agitated beta waves in the brain to more relaxed alpha and theta waves in the brain. And then also, finally, distance. Your eyes need distance like your lungs need air. Your distance calms the brain. It tells the amygdala, the fright center in the brain, that it's safe. And we like that. And distance and air both affect your telomeres and help them from fraying and decaying and help you from getting older. Even being near green space protects telomeres. So, once you hear this 93% idea, and once you see it, it's really hard to unsee, because it explains what people experience when they're doing everything right, but they still feel off. It explains that in a new way, a way that hasn't been described until now. It explains the idea that, in fact, mood can improve, that memory and clarity and focus can improve, that blood pressure can lower, that sleep can improve, that stress and reactivity can improve. It explains this idea in a new way. And this nature-based approach actually amplifies everything else that you're doing right for your health. It improves the fact that you're doing something right with your diet. It amplifies that. The same thing with your sleep, with your fitness, with your stress management. In fact, this nature-based approach doesn't have any side effects, doesn't take extra time because you're repurposing incidental time, it doesn't take willpower, and it doesn't have a copay. And it has much better data than any peptide. It's free, and it's right outside your door. Thanks very much.